Hi everybody, Jillian here for Illustrated Faith, and I'm back with a new Bible journaling process video using the Big Story Part 1 Devotional Kit. So today I'm going to be looking at the second theme that we're tracing, which is exile, and you'll notice there are 3 prompts in this one session. So the first one's in Genesis, the second one is in 2 Kings, and then the third one is in 2 Corinthians. So I am going to kind of like string all of those together in my illustrating Bible today. I'll share a little bit more about what I mean by that in a moment. So for today's page, I definitely want to use the stamps from the kit, some of the bits and bobs from Vanessa's Big Story Part 1 set. I've got some inks. I'm going to experiment with a Dina Wakley gloss spray today. These were just added to the Illustrated Faith shop, a very large bundle of them with all of the beautiful colors. And then I'll go ahead and grab my paper pieces that I have stored in my notebook here, because I want to use at least a few of them today in my illustrating Bible. So now that I've got everything in place, let's go ahead and get started. So for this page, I'm going to start by putting my Bible mat underneath Jeremiah 29 here. I'm going to be journaling verses 4 through 14. And I want to mask off the text here because I'm not sure how far this spray is going to spray. So I'm just going to use some scrap white cardstock that I have and put a teeny tiny bit of roller adhesive on the back, and then remove some of that tackiness from the tape with my finger so that when I pull up the mask, it doesn't take the text with it. Then I'm going to shake the gloss spray really well so that it all gets combined before I spray it. And then I really have loved seeing how Elaine Davis has used these sprays in her art journal, and she creates these really fun drips with hers. So I tried to do the same thing here, but I went a little bit too far. So I'm going to spray one more area down at the bottom of the page, very gingerly move my Bible mat, and then go ahead and remove the mask. So this dries with a really nice smooth sateen finish almost, and I'm going to add one more spritz here in the middle. I couldn't make it move around the way that I wanted to, so I'll add a bit more there, and then set that aside to let that dry naturally and then move on to my next part. I printed these printables on clear sticker paper, but I want to put some foam adhesive underneath them. Remember to save this sticker scrap. You can totally use that as tape for future projects, by the way. I'm going to put these on cardstock and then cut them out as if they had been originally printed on cardstock. And then I'll use this foam adhesive underneath them to pop them up off of the blue that I had previously sprayed on the page. There was a couple of die cuts that I wanted to use, and then a couple of journaling spots that I will just layer on top of this blue background. So I'm getting those ready and then going to place them on my page to figure out where I want them to go. So you could see there not really much bleed through aside from the paint that got on the underside of the page, but there is a little bit of shading which I think could easily be covered up if I wanted to journal on the back side of this page in Jeremiah. So again, to get an idea of where I wanted everything to go, I'm going to go ahead and punch out a tab from the stamp backer that was included with the kit. I've been doing that for my pages through the Big Story devotional, so there's a little bit of cohesion there. And then figuring out where I want the journaling spots, things like that. Now in placing everything down, I realized I wanted a little more blue towards the bottom, so I added a little bit more of this gloss spray in the color Ocean, and then hit that with my heat tool because I didn't want to wait for it to dry naturally. So I removed the backing from the foam adhesive and placed each one of these patterns down on the top right of my page, and I let 2 of the 3 hang off the edge, so I'm going to trim that excess once everything else is down. The title for my page is Pattern of Hope and Redemption. So I'm using the die cut piece, some word fetty washi tape, the white pepper alpha sticker, and then a stamp from the kit to spell out my title. I loved this little sewing machine that Vanessa included from Elaine's older set and wanted to put that down at the bottom, and then used Jill's word fetty that says God has a plan to kind of indicate the whole redemptive history that God is working out here. I outlined the passage that I was journaling and put a few more printables around that, and then another piece of word fetty that said words of hope. And then to kind of string together the passage in Genesis to this one in Jeremiah 29. I'm using that book, chapter, verse stamp so that I can, point back and forth throughout my Bible. It's one of my most favorite things to do in Bible journaling. So we noted here in this session of the devotional the pattern that emerges. In the Garden of Eden, God gives Adam and Eve this singular prohibition: do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But they disobey and are then exiled from the garden. Yet in Genesis 3:15, God still leaves them with, probably to them, some mysterious words of hope. Same thing here when Judah is exiled in Babylon. They were given the covenant and then disobedient. So they were exiled from the land after much, much patience on the Lord's part. And here in a letter to the exiles through the prophet Jeremiah are words of hope woven into their future. So one way to trace a theme as it develops through scripture is to note these patterns, and it just points to the cohesion of the big story of the Bible, and I just think that that's the coolest ever. So I'm noting that pattern here in Jeremiah 29. Now, towards the end here, I got the great idea to create some contrast on top of this blue gloss spray. There was some just kind of empty space in between those patterns, and I wanted to fill that in. So I used the button and some stitch marks that were included in the Big Story 1 stamp set, and used Versamark ink, it's like a watermark ink, to stamp those down on the blue background. It's kind of difficult to see in the video, and I really couldn't even see it in person, but I had an idea of where I had made the stamp impression, and then I put this white embossing powder from Zing on top of it, which gets everywhere. This was so messy. If you decide to emboss in a similar way, like if you decide to try something like this, do it before you put all of your die cuts and things like that down. There was embossing powder everywhere all over my desk. You could also use a white Signo pen like I'm using here to achieve a similar effect if you didn't have the stamp set. So I put the embossing powder down, tap off the excess, and then take my heat tool to melt that embossing powder, and we've got some fun contrast stitch marks. So I'm indicating here, after I got my date stamped down, that I wanted to just journal off camera, and so you can see here that I did that in my finished page. And that's it. I had so much fun taking some extra time to pull out these supplies that I don't normally reach for today's video, and had fun experimenting with the gloss spray that's currently in the Illustrated Faith shop. And don't forget, Big Story Part 1 is available in a digital format in the Illustrated Faith shop. I'll link that for you in the description below. And Part 2 just launched, so that kit also is available now. We'd love to have you join us. It's never too late to start. You can jump in at any time, and we'd love to have you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you soon.